online, on digital radio and TV, and on 94.9 FM.
London's radio station.
BBC Radio London.
Yeah, you're listening to BBC Radio London at 3 minutes past 8. It's so good to have you here.
BBC Radio London.
So many thanks to Sonny and Shay for the last couple of hours on BBC Radio London. Between now and 10 o'clock, though, we're going to conversate. 0207 224 2000. Please pick up the phone and give me a call and join in the conversation. Hopefully, Londoners will be talking about this in the morning. 0207 224 2000. The main talking point today is about the latest survey by the BBC about black graduate recruitment. Once again, the number to call is 0207 224 2000. I'm pleased to say that I'm joined by a host of contributors, very intelligent men and women who can offer solutions, because that's what we're looking for this evening, solutions rather than sticking some kind of band-aid on the problem, as it were. And also, to be honest, I would rather appreciate if we didn't suggest that it's not worth going to university, because let's face it, you may not everybody is cut out to go to university, but you can't knock people who go to university. That's just digging a hole for ourselves, isn't it? You might disagree. 0207 224 2000. We'll see if my guests do. In the studio with me, we've got husband and wife team Rowan and Natasha Clark. They're the founders and owners of a shoe brand called Uptown Yardie. Welcome to the programme, both of you.
Thank you, Dotun.
Really good to have you. Really good to have you on the programme as well. We've got BS Jammers with us, who's the founder of the Speakers Club, and handing me another book. And the book is called Decoding Language. Decoding Language. You might want to do a bit of that tonight as well. What do I call you? BS or Jammers?
DS or just call me Jammers.
Jammers. I'll call you Jammers. You're the founders of the Speakers Club. We'll find out more about what the Speakers Club is from you in a moment or two. We've got Paul Lawrence with us right now. He's a founder of lots of mentoring organisations, including the Life Skills Training Consultancy. But the one that you're working with at the moment, Paul, is what?
Well, I guess still working with Urban Synergy, the 100 Black Men, and my own company, which is Engage Training.
We've got Layla Sekilala with us as well, who's the founder of No Scrunchy. Layla, good evening.
Good evening.
We've got with us DS Jammers as well, founder of the Speakers Club. And Jammers, you have come from an event of your Speakers Club tonight in Tottenham at the Bernie Grant Centre. And this struck me as being a way of trying to circumvent all the bias that we're talking about for graduates. What essentially was the event about?
It's a question of hustling and the art of hustling, and what does a hustling entail. Originally is a term that was given to us in a negative perception based on like drugs and money, women, pimping, but now it's a term though that is used for business strategies and business skills. So we're just looking at the different connotations and different forms of hustling in relation to us, in relation to them.
So how and it's a fascinating thing. Remember, we're looking for solutions here, and this is an interesting one, isn't it? How would a graduate coming out with a degree, media studies, whatever, how would they look differently upon their career as a hustler, as it were? Do you think then? Because the impetus is that when you get your degree, you go out and apply for jobs, lots of corporate jobs, and hopefully somebody will slot you in somewhere. So you go for interview after interview, all the main companies and stuff, and then you don't get anywhere. So you're saying that you can look at that from a very different perspective then. Yeah. Basically. So with that degree in your back pocket, what would a hustler do?
Well, basically, when you look at the hustler, it's more about your character, how you carry yourself. So it's your inner, what qualities you have as yourself, rather than just your qualification. And it's bringing that to the surface, and using limited resources maybe in a different way. It's about being creative, because when you're going through the system, you just learn following the pen. It creates how you think, and how you think is rated by someone above you called a sir. So you think with a sir who rates you, you become thinkarcerated.
I like the language. Yeah, I like the language. I can work with that, actually. So when you say it's about character, is the character developed before you go to university then? Do you need to develop that hustling mentality from an early age, or when?
It really is. It's sort of suppressed through the educational system because you have to work to a certain form. But we have it in. It's just our character, and it's to develop your character and look about ways how you can use your talent. Maybe not how the system says it, but you can use your talent.
So you really need to start from an early age, or you could start from a very early age.
Yeah, or even just look at examples like Muhammad Ali or any example.
Well, would you describe him as a hustler?
Yeah, because basically
he hustled Sonny Liston, didn't he? He definitely hustled Sonny Liston, as we remember. Sonny Liston didn't know what hit him, literally. Well, Paul, you were about to comment on that.
If you think about it, we talk about our graduates, and unfortunately, and I really like what Jammers is talking about, because unfortunately...
Why'd you say unfortunately? I love it.
Our graduates, they graduate with their degree, whatever degree is, and they think that's enough. It ain't. Yeah? It's the soft skills. If you want to call it hustling, feel free. But if you want to go into a job interview and there's there's 5 other people just as qualified as you, yeah? 4 of them are white, and you're black, you're on an uphill curve. You got to have something more than just a piece of paper. Yeah? We like to call it soft skills. Jammers calls it hustling, but it's the same thing. You have to be able to work your way into that organization. You have to make them think that giving the job to anybody else is going to be a mistake.
Yeah, his event this evening was called The Art of Hustling, Layla. Can you see where he's coming from with that art of hustling? Remember, it's about your mental state when you go into
Well,
this.
I actually see it because I've spoken to a lot of young graduates who don't have jobs, and I've said to them, what have you tried? And they say, well, I've sent my CV into everybody, and I've gone online, and I've gone to the shops, and I've done everything. And I've said to them, what around your community have you done? Have you gone into your local salon and said to them, do you have a job? So, well, I don't want to do hair. But it's not about hair. Do they have a receptionist? Do they have someone picking their phone? Do they have someone who does the stuff that you can do? A lot of our young graduates can do social media, but they're not offering that skill to somebody else. And if you could, hustle your way into the salon to start with, and then you've got something on your CV. So when you go for an interview, in a corporate environment, you say, I've been doing this social media job for 3 years already. You've got something on someone else. And this is an opportunity that you can have, because if you walk into the Afro salon, they all need that work.
Well, I'm going to be exploring this some more, I must say, because my guests here have all achieved things in their own ways, quite a lot. They might not describe it as hustling, but this is an option. And remember what we're looking for this evening. We're looking for options, aren't we? We're looking for ways to circumvent, for graduates to circumvent what might inevitably be a kind of a bias against them one way or another. So what do you think? 0207 224 2000. Give me your thoughts on what you've heard so far. Some of it quite controversial perhaps, but maybe some of it that resonates with you. I'd like to hear from you. 0207 224 2000. Here in the studio with me, we've got Natasha Clark and Rowan Clark. They're the founders and owners of Uptown Yardie, which is a shoe brand. Shoes look nice. DS Jammers is here, founder of the Speakers Club. They had a really big event at the Bernie Grant Arts Centre in Tottenham this evening. In fact, the event is only just finished as we speak now, but Mr. Jammers came in early to speak to us about the art of hustling, as it were, and the mentality you need to be a success. And he says it's the hustler mentality on a legal way, remember that. But I do want to bring in Mr. Jammers in on this conversation. Right, so from what you've heard of Rowan and Natasha's struggle to set up their own business, how would you suggest that the hustler mentality, which you're representing for us this evening, as an alternative to going the standard, educational then job route, how would you say that would benefit them? From what you say, if you were setting up their business, what would you have done differently with that mentality?
Well, firstly, you have to understand the rules of the game, to be able to play the game, as in any game. If you look at the word ploy, as in the word employment, you see ploy means to trick or deceive. Ment means from the Latin mentis. So basically, you trick to work for somebody, and they benefit of you working for them. Education, ducate, comes from the word Duke's money. So when you're talented, that means wealth. So you're being trained to be somebody else's money.
This is all semantics, though, isn't it? I mean, let's get real now. When we use the word education and employment, we don't necessarily use it in those terms. You know, we use employment ourselves to get gainful employment, to be employed, to have something to do, and to show our skills as well. So, I mean, quite apart from the semantics, though, I'm not here to. I mean, if there are rules of the games that we have to learn, let's learn them. But do we need to learn the language of the game?
Well, basically, when you look at the top people, like 19 prime ministers have come from Eton, and they learn trivium, which is all about grammar, understanding how grammar's put together, how to speak and how to question. So basically, the successful people learn how to be producers,
how to speak properly.
Yes, how to speak.
How to master the language
is the key, and also your thinking is also related to your thinking. And another thing about the rule of the game is power. If somebody's in power, they're not going to teach you how to take the power off them.
No.
These are the, and the other thing is what you have to understand is as we say, so-called minority, we're living in an environment where people have a reaction against us. And what it is, we've got to learn how to go past the reaction. So when someone calls you a word or reacts to you, it's their reaction, it's not who you are. For instance, if a dog barks at you and says, ruff, ruff, you don't start calling yourself ruff, ruff and deliver it and start defining your life by their reaction. So we have to go past their reaction, develop the hustler mentality, which is you can see what the game is and see what you have to do to beat the game. And we've got fine examples like Sammy Davis Jr., Lewis Hamilton, Muhammad Ali, Usain Bolt. You have the rules that we haven't got the same criteria as everybody else. We have to surpass what everybody else is doing.
What about black women? Are they hustlers too? Because you mentioned Usain Bolt, Lewis Hamilton, Sammy Davis Jr., Muhammad Ali, but no women amongst them.
Black women are the key to us, because basically they're
hustlers?
Basically, if you look at the food that we had to, how we make our food, you know, from what we've been through the process of slavery, and you see how the spice and the taste and how we design, we are, everything that the man gets is from what's been taught from the woman. The women is the first scientists, because they've got to use the limited resources, juggle the resources like a hustler to give us healthy environment and enlighten us with our educational skills.
So on Mother's Day, as it is today, we are, amongst other things, celebrating our mothers' hustler mentalities. Can we say that?
Yeah, we can be proud of what because we can only go as far as how our mothers have trained us. So we can. The mother brings us to the light.
You still haven't answered though, Jammers. How would both Rowan and Natasha improve their business with a hustler mentality?
Well, it's, as I said, it's using you can use your resources in different ways. What it is, we get stuck in like, maybe because I sell shoes, we have to just do it in a certain way. What everybody else is doing, in a traditional way. Where there's other things where the shoes can be used as in a different way. It could be used as design for artwork, because so we can develop artists just from that one product. There's so many different ways that it could be used.
And where it's sold as well. And where it's sold as well, you know. We don't have to follow the traditional way of how things have always been done, because it served them very well. If you have a bespoke product, which I knew about your product before, you really have to go into different areas. You have to go way beyond, because, you know, the normal manufacturers, they're used to the normal stuff. So you probably need to be looking at the cottage industries, the guys who they're not attracting the big 6,000 order from Clark's, but they're hungry as well. And it may well be a brother who's a manufacturer.
Do you know the funny thing was when I saw it, now I've known about Uptown Yardie shoes for some time as well. And do you know the funny thing, when I first saw their promotional, and especially those yellow and white spats, it did catch my eye, because they're interesting. First thing I thought of was, that's going to go down well with some of the white boys I know. No disrespect.
Absolutely, because it's
that, man.
It's a part of the things.
Yeah.
But one of the things that was being said earlier is that this unconscious bias that the graduates face, you face it in business as well. So it's not really a case of, oh, you don't have to be a graduate, go start a business, because you're going to bump into the same thing. So the mentality of the hustler needs to be all throughout, because you're going to meet it.
Jammers, come in on that.
No, I was going to say, also they've developed a skill. So that skill could be promoted even in schools or whatever. So it's not just stuck on the product. It's the skill that they've got, and even the problems that they've had in facing. This is a skill that could be passed, so people can willing to learn, and you can use that as well.
So you've broken down what Rowan and Natasha need to do, and I'm going to get their responses from that as well. But your next mission, Jammers, is to break down what Layla Sekulala of No Scrunchy has to do as well, and also what other graduates have to do. The reason that we're having this conversation is we're trying to unlock avenues for graduates, black graduates, because that's where the problem is, to go and either create their own, because if there are no jobs for them, they've got to create something, haven't they? And we're looking at other avenues as to how they can penetrate what seems to be some sort of bias in the workplace, at least amongst corporate companies, towards them in getting jobs, which results in them having half the chances of their white counterparts in being able to get a job. These are graduates we're talking about. It's graduates. This is why this conversation is, number one, quite demoralising. When you look at those stats, it's quite demoralising. You can, I've got a daughter myself who's applying for university this year. How can I convince her that it's still worth applying for university when she sees stats that suggest that she's half as likely to get a job at the end of it as her white counterpart? So I'm going to try and teach her some hustling after today's done. If Jammers can prove to me that it's well worth doing. For now, though, 02722422000. We had an excellent call from Ashley in Beckenham earlier. What's the point that you want to make from this conversation? Oh, I don't know what happened there. It wasn't supposed to say that. It wasn't supposed to do that, was it? What's going on tonight? I'm having some gremlins. I do apologise. You're listening to Dotun on Sunday. Do phone in now with your thoughts and comments on the conversations that Londoners will be having in the morning. I'm sure by the time the show's over, everything will be running smoothly and the gremlins will have disappeared somewhere else. I'll tell you what we're talking about this evening, though. We're talking about a BBC Radio London survey that's found that black male graduates in London are nearly twice as likely to be unemployed as their white counterparts. A BBC investigation, as I said, and we spoke to one of the people behind it, Ben Hunt, one of our reporters earlier on. The investigation has found that some of the capital's biggest companies failed to recruit any black men in their recent intakes. Now, does that surprise you? I'm talking huge companies. You gave an example of, for example, the NHS, and they realise that it ain't right, and they've got to do something about it. In 2016, there was an unemployment rate of 18% for black male graduates, and that compares with 10% for their white counterparts. And that's according to data from the Office for National Statistics. A government spokesperson has said that the employment rate for ethnic minorities was at a record high, is how they describe it. More than 83,000 young men in London are from black and mixed black ethnic groups, which makes up about 1 in 5 of young men in the capital. So it's a huge impact this is having. And black men, this is where black men rank, and I'm not being disparaging in any way, but according to the research by the National Audit Office, black men, along with Pakistani and Bangladeshi women, consistently have the lowest employment rates in the United Kingdom. Here in the studio to talk about the ramifications of that, and also to offer some solutions through their own work and the businesses that they've set up, Layla Sekulala, who's the founder of No Scrunchy, which is a website for hair salons, essentially, and it's for consumers and for the hair salons as well. DS Jammers, founders of the Speakers Club. His Art of Hustling is an event that he puts on. It was on at the Bernie Grant Art Centre in Tottenham earlier on this evening. Natasha Clark and Rowan Clark are founders of a shoe company called Uptown Yardie. And Paul Lawrence is here again. And go on, Paul.
You say it again.
I'm giving you an opportunity to tell us all the many things that you do.
Okay, the only thing that's important for tonight's discussion is that, what I would say to the young people, indulge yourself and really lift yourself in terms of personal development. You're leaving school, and we've all been told you got to work 10 times harder. Well, 10 times harder really translates to get yourself some soft skills. Find an organization that's going to teach you about public speaking. Find an organization that's going to teach you about how to do interviews. I see the Barclays Bank, they have a soft skills thing that they're doing now for young people. If you can't get on it, find someone like Urban Synergy. Find someone like the 100 Black Men of London. Find someone like the Manhood Academy. Find someone who recognizes that, yep, your degree, it's all great and dandy, but it's not enough. You need to develop those skills that will make you stand out even when you're being compared to white counterparts.
Do you see what I mean? I couldn't have done that. I couldn't have said it like he said it. In other words, what he wanted to tell you was that he's a mentor.
Didn't say that.
Well, no, I'm just saying that you're life skills mentor. Come on, Paul. I offered to say it for you, and then you say to me, "No, you'll say it." So I let you say it, and then you say to me, "Oh, you can't remember." And I can't win either way. Anyway, getting back onto the subject now. NoScrunchy.com is the website of one of my guests here in the studio, as we've already heard from her. Indeed, Layla, and this is Layla Sekalala. She's a founder of this website, which she describes as, TripAdvisor, that tells you, where to travel, where not to travel, which restaurants are good, which restaurants aren't bad. It's kind of like that, but for hair salon business. And we know that hair business in the black community, that's where the money's at, isn't it, Layla? That's where the real money is.
Oh, that's where the money should be.
That's where the money. Look, that's where most of the money I earn goes out to. Each time my wife leaves the house, I can assure you. No, truthfully, I mean that. She goes out early in the morning before I'm even awake, like 5 o'clock in the morning. Doesn't come back till about midnight. And literally, our house has sunk a little deeper into debt each time she does that. It makes money. No, it does. Much more than patty shops and the like. Well, and yet, when you visit these hair salons, well, often there's a lot to be desired. Why is that?
This was actually the beginning of No Scrunchy, because I went to salons time and time again that were just rubbish. No bathrooms, people eating greasy food while doing your hair, waiting all day, which you've mentioned. And I looked around because there's so many websites that do this for Caucasian hair. And I thought, well, there's got to be a salon in there for me. And the biggest site that does this for Caucasian hair had only one Afro salon on there. One. And I thought, well, this is not possible. There must be something for me out there. And I took the plunge, set up No Scrunchy at that point, just based on trying to find a salon, which quite gladly I have found. But in setting it up, I realized that there's so many good Afro salons out there. We just don't know how to market them. They just don't know how to do their admin, to do their accounting. And these are services we can offer. They also don't know how to find people to work in the salon. So we've set up a salon jobs page just to let them advertise their jobs, to reach out to people who want to work in Afro salons, because previously, how do you find a job in an Afro salon?
Do you think the fact that you went to university and did an accountancy degree informs your impetus, your reaction to not finding a salon that suited you? Most people would have just thought, oh gosh, well, I'll find another salon, whereas you thought, no, I'll set up a business. Do you think that degree, the discipline you went through, the experience of getting the degree informs your ultimate decision at all, or not?
I think it did. I mean, I didn't have to hire an accountant to start off with to do my business plan. And also, going to university gives you some kind of, I'll call it privilege. It's, the educated privilege where you think, well, there must be something out there for me. It's not possible that it doesn't exist. I just need to find it. Or create it, in my case. And it's that privilege that you have, that you can do it because someone's given you the confidence to believe in yourself, which is what my degree gave me.
From one Layla to another Layla in Lewisham, who's the founder of Urban Synergy. Layla, really appreciate your calling. Good evening.
Good evening. Hi, I'm Layla.
Oh, that's Layla in the studio and Layla on the phone then. I'm glad that we made the distinction. No, really, thank you. And apologies for the way that Paul has described Urban Synergy so far. He should have just let me do it, frankly. Anyway, great. It's true, Paul. Great to have you on the studio. You wanted to talk about one of the comments that Paul made, though?
Yeah, sure. I mean, with regards to young people and securing work placements, I think I'm in agreement with Paul. It is two-pronged. It's perceptions in the workplace, but also young people. Academics isn't enough, really. I've seen young people that have gone to Oxbridge University. They've got the academics, but they didn't have the work experience. I've also heard many people in the corporate sector saying, if young people don't have work experience, they don't even look at their CVs. So this is why Urban Synergy is so passionate about helping young people to have the support network, to have the soft skills, to have the opportunities from a young age, to know what they need to have to connect to those opportunities, to secure those work placements beyond degree. And it starts from young. So, for example, if, getting them into the idea, you can do volunteering to build your soft skills and to build your network. And then it's good for them to have that positive environment of role models and mentors to champion them and to help them build up their resilience. Because, we're all going to get knocked back in life. That's just life. It happens with everyone, no matter what background they come from. But they need to be able to continue with those knockbacks and persevere. And carry on. So that's really what Urban Synergy is about, helping them to have those the network and those soft skills so they can connect to those life chances.
Paul has described it as soft skills as well, and DS Jammers in the studios has described it as a hustler mentality, and Paul sees he sees the relationship between that and maybe a different perspective or a slightly different way of describing pretty much the same thing, that you need some extracurricular skills. Tell me this though, Layla, which is the more important then? Is it the degree in your back pocket, the education? Is it the discipline of going through university or whatever, or the soft skills? Which is the more important for you?
I think you need to have the right attitude. It's essential, hard-working, teamwork.
Which is more important then, the right attitude or the degree? I
think excellence is the best cure for, if you're looking at, prejudice and things that come up. I think excellence is the best cure for all of that. So you have, they're both as important to know what,
No, I know excellence can come in terms of the paper qualification, or it can come in terms of the soft skills. Which is more important, the excellence of the paper qualification or the excellence of the soft skills?
I think the actual soft skills are important, because I've seen actually corporates are actually... Well, yeah, I've seen corporates are actually, changing their policy as well. So they're not only taking graduates on board now as well to give those young people. You have to have that right attitude.
Yeah, but they look at they look at the qualifications first, though, don't they?
Yeah, but you might...
Paul's shaking his head. I'll let him come back in a second.
A qualification. I mean, you can still be able. A qualification is just something you can prove to the employee they can do it. It doesn't mean that you can't do it. It's good to have it.
Yeah, I know, but I just wonder what they look at first, because at some point...
On paper, that's what they look at first. So if you're going to look at it from that angle, I suppose, on paper, so they can see who you are, that's going to outshine anybody, because they don't know who that young person is. It don't mean that the person with the degree is more able than the other person, though.
Just stay with us a moment, Layla. DS Jammers, what's more important from your perspective? Is it the learning to hustle part? And remember, we're talking about hustling in a very legal and positive way here. No, because people might have just tuned into the programme and may not know what exactly we mean, and I don't want them to get the wrong impression. What's more important then, to have the mentality of a hustler, if you like, or to have the mentality of a university graduate and all that contains?
Well, I think it's personally it's develop the hustling mentality, because you have to develop your own skills. Everything starts with yourself, so you have to be able to develop your own skills, your own look, your own. Even for economics, you have to. If you're not getting any leeway, especially as a graduate, create your own market. What she's done is excellent. I've got like a flavour showcasing where there was just a restaurant, empty restaurant, and we created flavour showcasing where we just developed our own talent, and that's coming to a success where it's being picked up on Sky Channel. So you've got to develop your skills, your motivational skills, your speaking skills.
But you heard from Layla Shikalala, if you're going to point to her and say what she's done is excellent, she said that it was predicated, or at least benefited from the fact that she had gone through the university process, etc., and perhaps informed what she did subsequently.
Mm-hmm. Well, they both work hand in hand, but if you haven't got any personal skills, you're going to end up as a statistic.
Which is the more important? The hustler for you is the hustling.
The hustler will get you the personal skills, will get you through there. Whereas if you could...
Would it get you through a university degree as well? Because as Leela's been saying on the phone, the first thing that the employers are looking at is what's on your CV, and they're talking about your qualifications, your academic. That's a first level, because remember, there's going to be a cut-off. They're going to get 100,000 applications, so they're going to say, okay, all the ones with first degrees from Oxford, we'll take them, cut everybody else out, so we're down to only 100 now.
I reevaluate. I say you need both skills. It's not one. You need to be fully rounded. You need to be fully rounded. So I reevaluate my response.
Layla, can you understand why I'm trying to get to the bottom of that? Because there'll be a lot of parents listening to this program and thinking, hang on a second. If it's more important to have the soft skills, if it's more important to have the hustler mentality, or whatever you want to call it, why are our children not spending 3 years at university learning those crucial aspects of getting a job afterwards? Why are they spending 3 years, learning philosophy? Layla? Oh, I've lost Layla. Oh! Okay, well, don't worry. Layla, then. You can pick up from Layla. You can pick up. You see how I did that very smoothly? Take some skills. We've got young DeMarque in the studio with us as well. He's a 16-year-old and he's learning the skills from an expert. Isn't he Paul Lawrence?
Yes, sir. Absolutely, sir.
Anyway, the broadcasting skills, that is. We've got Gertrude with us in Erith as well. Gertrude, good evening. Really appreciate your calling us. I don't know how much... of the conversation you've been following this evening. It's been a really fascinating one. From my point of view, in any case, it's been really fascinating. The question that I was just asking now, Gertrude, which is more important, the soft skills or the university degree? Which has been more important in your life?
Personally, I think you can't have one without the other.
Yeah, but which is the more important, though?
The way things are going now, I think you need the soft skills.
Okay, that's interesting.
A degree on its own is just absolutely not going to cut it.
Now, you're saying this from experience, I presume?
Yes.
Tell me what your experience is, please.
Well, actually, just coming back into work after being a stay-at-home mom, and what has happened to me is, although I have a degree, I have a big gap without having that soft experience, because I was home with the kids. And very many jobs I apply for, I have the paper qualifications, but I haven't got the experience. So that's holding me back.
The experience is not soft skills, though, is it?
I mean, I haven't been as in having, like, people have been saying, go and try this organization, or go and try this, or go and try that. I haven't done that.
This is Paul Lawrence speaking. To use the language of the day, there's a hustle around not having the experience. And Layla, who spoke earlier, was talking about going into places which may not be paying if you are able to do it, and building a portfolio of experience. Or, certainly what I did when I wanted my first job in the UK was I didn't wait for them to figure it out. I cross-referenced other experience I had and said to them, this means that I will be good at this. It's I hate to use the word over and over. It's a hustle. You have to be able to reach out, because you're not going to get the experience unless you can point them to stuff. So, when we're talking to people, we're talking about volunteering in your community, trying to do something, even if it's a little startup business of your own, that you can say, well, I had to do my books, I had to do, my management, I had to do my meetings, I can do a whole range of things which help me. And the employer will say, okay, you've done this, I'll give you a try. It may not be 100%, but you have to be able to give it a try. And the only way you're going to do that is by finding employers who are happy to listen. But you have to get there first, and you have to give yourself that confidence, because you can get knocked back when you start to feel that, oh, everybody keeps telling me I don't have the experience. So therefore, don't get knocked back. Try and build in another way.
Yeah.
Actually,
I actually went to school with Layla. And hi, Layla.
Hi.
And Layla in school was always on some kind of committee. She was on the table tennis days, debate that, almost every club she was there. So she's always had that, what you're calling the hustling mentality. My question is, can you make someone a hustler, or is someone born a hustler? Do you have that mentality, or can someone build that mentality in you?
That's a question for you, Jammers. Sorry, Karen, Gertrude.
And then again, like I was saying, yes, I took time off to stay home with my kids. And during that time, I wasn't able to volunteer as I wanted to. I wasn't able to go into the jobs which might not even pay as much and get that experience. So what I'm asking is, what happens to me now? The kids are back in school. Yes, I'm back at work, but I have a gap. And that gap was taking care of my kids. I'm a graduate, yes, but I have a gap.
Okay, we're going to try and answer both those questions. First, let's go to Jammers, who's our hustling king for the night, or at least he's the man behind the arts of hustling. Gertrude's question, Jammers, you can talk to her directly. She wants to know if you can become a hustler or if you have to be born a hustler.
Well, hustling is using your natural skills in the most effective ways. It's utilising the resources and us at the Speakers Club, you can come down there, or Paul Lawrence, you can certainly be trained how to be a hustler. It's positioning yourself. I mean, the Prime Minister is going to hustle in Brussels for a better idea.
This is true. He's right.
Politicians canvass for votes. The English term is hustle and bustle. So
do you have to be born a hustler, or you can become a hustler?
Once you know the rules of the game, you can get your qualifications in hustling as well.
Okay, Layla Sekulala, you can talk to your old friend Gertrude, because her question...
We're still friends.
Oh, okay, you're still friends, good. Because you were saying that you went to school with her and she used to play table tennis. I was going to tell you that she's grown up since then, but I won't. So the question that Gertrude is asking is, how can she now redeem the gap in her curriculum vitae, really, where she's gone? And I would have thought that having children was the best soft skills that you could possibly have. I mean, this is incredible that people are biased against you when you say, I've been away for 2 years or whatever, having children.
Hi Gertrude, it's Layla. Hi. The taking time off to have kids is something that people look at as a bad thing before they put it on their CV, but I would advise you to put it on your CV. Put the fact that you've taken time off, how much time you've taken off, what soft skills you've gained in that time. I've been for an interview once where someone said to me, I negotiate with my child every day. I gain negotiation skills. And that's a big thing. If you deal with children, your organization skills get so much better. Your negotiation skills get so much better. You become a more rounded person by having to think about what your children need more than what you need. You're a team player. It's all stuff you can put on your CV. Don't shy away from it because you think, oh, people will look at me and think I'm just a mom. You are a mom as well as everything else. And you can definitely put those skills on your CV.
Gertrude, you convinced?
Yes, very much so. Thank you very much. I'm enjoying the talk.
Thank you very much for calling 0207 224 2000. But Paul, just very quickly on what, in fact, you seem to be answering everything, Paul. So if you don't mind, I'm going to talk to a woman who ought to know better. Natasha Clark knows you. Well, at least you know better than Paul. Come on, understand these things. When I was saying to Gertrude, then it's a really, really, really important question now, an important subject, a frustrating one. It must be for lots of women who have to make decisions between career and children. I can imagine you come out as a graduate and you're falling in love and you want to start a family and everything, but you're thinking about your career. And I know a lot of women in this position. And more frustratingly, and this is one of the sort of hidden truths of our experience as black people, the majority of people I know in that situation are black women who made choices about career because their parents told them career, and then put off having children. I'm saying from my own experience, I'm not saying this for everybody, put off having children to pursue their career, and then instead of, falling in love or ending up it's not just a black thing that my editor tonight is telling me. Rinky Atto. I didn't say it was just a black thing. I'm just saying from my own experience. You're absolutely right. Yeah, the boss tonight is a woman and she puts me in my place when I say so. So it's not just a black. So let me scrap the black part out of that. From my experience, a lot of the women that I've seen have decided to pursue career, and because culturally, whether it was white or black, culturally, career was an important thing. And yet, when they start a family, like Gertrude was saying there, they're penalised for it. Whereas I would think the person who had started a family and had a family was the one that I would trust most in my company to know how important, how serious life is, amongst other things,
What I find really interesting is that you shouldn't ask this question, but in the past where employers would ask questions at interview about do you have a family, which of course is quite illegal to do now, that they would interpret that answer differently if it was a man. So if a man said they had a family, then they were seen as, right, well, that they'll be really committed to working because they're the breadwinner, they'll always be there. But if the same question is asked of a woman, then the bias comes in that, oh, okay, so she's going to be off looking after the kids, or she's going to want to have a career break. And unfortunately, that kind of bias, even though that question isn't necessarily asked anymore, is still going on in the heads of some employers when they look at their talent pool, they look at career progression as well. But I'd say to women, I'd say to black people generally, not to be apologetic about who you are, because who you are is who you are. I really agree with this. I love this term hustle. It's about understanding. It is about understanding how to play the game. And if you come from a privileged background, that comes naturally, because you get the opportunities. Mummy and daddy already work in corporate business. You get the holiday jobs. That goes onto your CV. You get to network, so you become part of that in-group. So can you learn it? Yes, absolutely you can. But you start from a point that you're not apologetic about who you are, and you have a right to be there like everybody else. So whether you're a graduate going into an organisation or starting up your own business, you have to feel confident about your skills.
But you can't help but think, Paul Lawrence, that these stats that we're talking about, which says that young black graduates are twice as likely to be unemployed as their white counterparts, will mean that a lot of young black graduates seeing this will think, I'm going to delay starting a family.
Well, I think quickly let me address one thing you were talking about, whether the hustle or the degree was more important. I think this is a very important point. A good hustler turns up with all their equipment, and so the degree is a part of the hustle. Yep. Nowadays, everybody has a degree. So if you're going to say, well, I'm not going to do that, then what you're doing, you're automatically putting yourself at a disadvantage if you're looking to go into certain fields. So let's get that clear out there. When it comes to the young graduates looking forward now, I can only but repeat myself and say, we have to look smarter. Get the degree, but learn to network. Learn to find people who are already in the industries that you are seeking to get into. Yep. Use social media in the right way. Social media to connect yourself. Ask the questions. Yep.
And we'll come back to this in just a moment, Paul, because I need to go to the news and travel right now. We'll pick up on the back of that in just a moment. But first, let's get the latest BBC Radio London travel and our news headlines with Sarah Thornton.
BBC Radio London.
You're a London MP. What would you say to people listening tonight?
That the terrorists will never win.
First for London.
And that would be your message to your constituents and to the rest of our city.
Democracy will continue tomorrow morning.
Let's get your reaction tonight on BBC Radio London.
I was so proud of how it's handled. There was no hysteria.
You went down earlier tonight as an act of defiance.
Absolutely.
Shock has really set in tonight. I've just been catching up with the news headlines.
And we need to be more together, we Londoners.
BBC Radio London.
Thank you for your programme. I'm humbly grateful.
First for London.
Yeah, 02722424000. Still time to join in this conversation, if you like. We're talking about the fact that black graduates are half as likely to be, or twice as likely to be unemployed as their white counterparts, trying to get to solutions or alternatives to relying on jobs where there might be a bias, consciously or unconsciously. It is a BBC Radio London survey that's found this discrepancy in the graduate in the graduate employment rates. Let's speak to Keith in Pimlico, though. And Keith, you're a civil servant, and thank you very much for joining in the conversation on this. What's your thoughts on these stats?
Oh, well, Dotun, it's quite interesting. My view is that it's all about horrible cliche networking, and one of the problems is, I think, if people go to certain universities and they come from certain backgrounds, they're constantly moving in them circles, where if you're living on the North Peckham estate, it's going to be a lot more difficult to move in them circles in terms of getting the job opportunities. You'll have the qualities, because I believe some of the qualities like grit, determination, teamwork, resourcefulness are something that London kids have, but they might not, which are like the soft skills, dealing with people, but unfortunately it's where they look at the academic side, if that's I could sort of use that sort of way.
Yeah, sure, yeah. I mean, how do you get around that, though? If you're saying that it's networking, you don't belong to that demographic, or your geography where you live is very difficult to penetrate in the other geographical space. How do you get around that?
I think schools have to be certainly state schools, because independent schools do it subconsciously, but certainly, dare I say it, state schools have got to drive it, what I call facing outwards more. If that, in terms of that, they've got to develop a career and a job and an opportunity structure that looks out and gets people to come in. Like, I know I do a bit of it myself. I'm a bit of a lowly civil servant. I go and do Aspire in the Future thing, but I go into schools, mainly in schools like exclusively, a couple of times a year, do CV training, and a lot of the sixth form I deal with don't realise that what they do when they run a cafe or set up a cake stand or do charity work is actually probably more important to a good employer now than actually 5 A's at A or whatever.
I do get that. There's a couple of things I want to pick up on, and don't say you're a lowly civil servant. No, because if you were able to impart some of your experience to younger people and to help them along the way, you're not lowly, you're highly sought after. And a civil servant once said, and this was a civil servant like you who went into a school space that I happened to be in, and he was talking to the sixth formers, and he said, you lot are lucky because you've all decided to go to university. If I'd known better what I know now, I'd have gone to university as well. But because I didn't go to university, there is a ceiling above which I cannot penetrate in the civil service because I don't have a degree. And that is the case, isn't it?
I think, well, the thing is, interesting enough, the civil service just started what they call the fast stream. They're also working more towards getting people apprenticeships, getting them in and sort of, helping them, mentoring them, to move up through the grades. That's a very, very positive
I get that. But the bloke that comes in with a degree is going to bypass a lot of that and just go straight above you. And it's the same in the police force and lots of other civil service industry. And the other point that I wanted to make just very quickly as well was in terms of the state schools and the independent schools, it is the case, obviously, a lot of middle-class people send their children to independent schools so that when the name of a lord or a viscount or an earl comes up in later life, they can say, I went to school with them.
Absolutely.
And yet, when they ask who I went to school with, it's like, come on, did you see Crime Watch last night?
My long crime watch 12 years ago. I thought, bloody hell, I went to school with him in Tulse Hill.
I tell you, I'm not sure if we can bypass that. And thank you very much for the contribution to the programme. It's a really excellent one, though. And it undermines a lot of what we're trying to sort of suggest that people do. It doesn't undermine the hustling, though, the hustling perspective. which we've got here, because one of our guests here is a guy behind the art of hustling, and he's saying that there is an art to succeeding in the workplace, to succeed in employment, to succeed as a graduate. Beneath it all is this sort of sense of you look at life as a hustle, and you've got to be the master of that hustle. And it's a different approach, isn't it, than following the established lines of progression from school to GCSE to A-levels to degrees to then a job, hopefully a career, and a home and a family and 2.1 children and a car. It's a different way of looking at things. But as much as we've got Jammers here, who is a master of the art of hustling, we've also got a youngster called Demarque, who's a 16-year-old, and throughout the program, like these 16-year-olds, they just can't keep their mouths shut when you're trying to have a grown-up program. Do you know what I mean? Big people talking, and there's a 16-year-old in the background saying, no, it's not like that. For my generation, it's not like that. Yeah, we'll do that. We do it this way. Don't do this, do that. Demarque, welcome to this program.
Thank you very much indeed.
No, it's been a pleasure having you. So the jokes aside, though, but you have had comments throughout everything that's been said today, this evening, about the way that your generation sees things. Go on, share that with London.
Well, my generation isn't that really focused on getting to work or having jobs. They're more about the money and the material things, like having the latest phones, latest shoes, latest cars, latest
How
everything.
How are they going to get it?
Pardon?
How are they going to get it?
Well, some of them are in gangs. They have...
And you do know that the first lesson of radio is don't bang the table, because it sounds like you're playing the drums. Anyway, I'm just teaching them about broadcasting.
They have avenues in which they get things through gangs and through... other things I'm not going to go into because it's quite...
Yeah, but not all of your generations do. That's a very small
some of them
percentage.
do.
Yeah,
but,
one or two.
But the majority of them, like me, who want to have a job...
You're still banging on the table? Yeah.
The majority of them want to get a job in media or in fashion or design. So those young people are the ones that have a good mindset and know what they want to do, but the rest of them are more focused on having, like I said, the latest phones and shoes and cars, so they're not really in tune with the rest of London.
When your generation sees, when you particularly as a 16-year-old sees these statistics that suggest that going to university won't guarantee you a job, and particularly if you're black, you're more likely to be, particularly if you're a black man, you're twice as likely to be unemployed as your white counterparts. How do you react to that? Does it make you nevertheless want to pursue what you're doing, or does it frustrate you, demoralise you, or otherwise?
Doesn't frustrate me at all, because I know what I want to do, because I have the links that I need within media and broadcasting. So once I leave my school, I can get a job straight away. I don't have to worry about university.
But suppose you don't,
because I'm studying my level 3 degree in creative media and broadcasting. So,
but suppose you don't get a job afterwards.
I mean, well, I've like I said before, I have industry links. I have backup plans to follow. I have avenues to get into the media industry. So if I don't become a radio presenter, I can start off as a graphic designer or a producer or an audio designer or a jingle designer, and that way my name's still known within the industry and have the fast track, rather than going to university for 3 years, which is a complete waste of time. I can get an apprenticeship and head straight into the media. I don't need university.
Complete waste of time.
It's a waste of time, and it's a waste of money.
DS Jammers, are we talking about? Is this the kind of young man that appeals to you in your...
I think we recruit him as one of our prime teachers in our academy.
So he's learned the art of hustling. There's
a negative connotation to the hustling when you're just for yourself and you don't care who you hurt to get where you want to get.
No, but he's not saying that. He's got a backup plan.
Yeah, he's got his backup plan.
That's hustling in that sense.
That's long-term planning. Yeah.
He's got plan B, plan C, plan D, plan E.
That's right.
And even further. And is that part of the hustling mentality?
This is one of the main hustling. You've got to have all options and even create new options, even when there's not an option.
So he's learnt all that at the age of 16. Too fast, too young?
No, that's great. Now you should open a school on hustling. and teach everybody else.
Well, I'm not sure if he wants to. He wants to be a broadcaster, doesn't he? He wants to be a broadcaster. But taking it from here, is there anything that he needs to learn, though?
He does need to learn about the actual, like the paper. You need to legitimize and have, you have to get the qualifications as well.
Yeah.
That is another side of the hustling.
Does he have to know? Does he have to have knowledge of self? It's really important within the black community to know where we're coming from, and does that inform the hustling mentality or not? Is that irrelevant?
That solidifies it, because you've got another way of looking at something. Because basically this circle is for those who are in power. So you're seen as a minority. But when you've got your cultural base behind you, you can see that you were in a majority at a certain point, and you've got the potential to reclaim your majority in this environment.
We've got Tom in Aldgate with us, and this conversation that we're having is very close to your heart, I understand, Tom.
Yes, it is. Well, I mean, this is my first time calling in, listening to the conversations. Sorry, excuse me. This is definitely something I want to actually talk about. First of all, just to give you a little background, I was born in Camden. I've lived abroad most of my life in Nigeria for 8.5 years, although I'm not originally, my parents are not from Africa. But in any case, looking in our parents' time, the 9-to-5 job, working 2.1 children, in the market, going into a mortgage, that was a reality for them. In our reality, is very different. If you think of affordability of getting the first job and what the salaries come out as averages, and then you look at the affordability of a house and putting a deposit down, this is a gap that keeps on increasing. And the reality is, for me, the way I approach it is actually modern-day slavery. So your big corporate banks and the big corporates are kind of looking at certain skills, be it in terms of have the ability to do the job, but there's still a number, so that you're very expendable. I have worked in the corporate world and been churned out into redundancy, right? And I've seen they do have a bias when they're actually recruiting. Hello?
We're still here. We're still listening. Go ahead.
Yeah. So I have seen there is an issue, but the root of it is education and the approach to education. For now, this day and age, it isn't really about actually what specifically you've learned. The academia side of things are going to teach you very basic tools, but to apply them in the reality, you do need that ability to gauge what you need to use for different times. So I know some people are using the word hustle, some people are using, but that is essentially a very basic skill. It's a very basic skill. Now, the thing is, a lot of people, first point is communication. And unfortunately, our schooling, the ability to communicate or explain something or understand someone, that has been lost. I mean, recently I'm actually working in a school at an HR department, and I'm looking at the abilities of the people who are supposed to be teaching them. They don't, I won't mention names obviously, but they literally, it's senior management, they're head teachers, and that they don't have a clue. They really don't. They've started an interview and realized, actually, I like this person for a different role. They've created a different role within the interview. And you think you haven't got an organization structure, you haven't got a clue. Fine, you might have a degree, you might have slight experience in teaching, but you don't know how to manage a school or have inspiration of building the new skill sets for children growing up to deal with the problems in life, right? So in order to be able to tackle the issues in their time, if we limit our next generation to our limits, then we won't actually give them something to build on a different level. And I think that's really, so I remember having a conversation with my dad. He's like a retired professor now. But he was like, do get a job, do this, do that, get your degree, and you're fine. Yes, if you're going into a particular aspect, like you're going into medicine, you want to be a doctor, or you want to be an engineer, structural engineer, civil engineer, then yes, you do need that traditional education. And that's a different world. But majority of people don't go into the life sciences. They're doing like, for example, the 16-year-old who wants to go into media. Now, if you've got a passion for something like that, you need to look at all the variables that he obviously has, looked at, okay, this is one route, this is another route, this is another route, and have the ability to work that out. When you're traveling from, let's say, Aldgate, where I am, and you want to travel to Heathrow, you need to look at what different aspects the roads are, the traffic's going to be, the time of day, and then you actually decide, okay, this is how I'm going to go. Unfortunately, our schooling system is building what are called sheep. This is the way they put them in your pens, and that's personally what I think is modern-day slavery. Because you just, in a 9-to-5, you start with a student loan, you're going into the big world with a debt, and then you're going into, well, if you can just about make a deposit, you're going into a mortgage.
Yeah, Tom.
By the time you're retired...
Tom, that is the landscape for a lot of people. You know that it's the first time you've called, and I don't want it to be the last time you've called. We're wrapping up the programme. It's the only reason why I'm cutting you off now, but we did get the point. Absolutely. And particularly about the educational system. It's not preparing our children for the world that they are about to find themselves in. Tom in Aldgate, thanks very much. We get a final word from my guest on all of this as well. Let's start with the creators of these shoes that are called Uptown Yardies, Natasha Clark, and the designer, her husband, Rowan Clark, as well. By the way, is there a website or something that we can find out more about these shoes?
There is. That's www.uptownyardie.com.
So my question to you both is, to hustle or not to hustle?
Hustle.
Sorry?
To hustle.
To hustle?
100%.
In terms of business?
In terms of business. We were forced to hustle.
Yeah.
We had no option.
And don't be apologetic be confident about who you are. And I think as a community that we need to support and learn from each other, and that's definitely helped us.
Layla Sekilala, founder of Nose Crunchies. Is there a website for that as well, by the way, Layla?
Yes, the website is www.nosecrunchy.com.
Indeed, I'm looking at it now. Very pretty.
Thank you.
No, I was thinking of the models, and they're gorgeous. They're gorgeous. Wow, what do you expect me to say? They are gorgeous.
I thought you'd found a salon.
Okay. So, to hustle or not to hustle?
Definitely hustle.
Hustle.
Definitely. Learn the rules of the game and play the game.
Okay. Paul Lawrence, amongst other things, mentor supreme. Let's leave it at that for now. To hustle or not to hustle?
Certainly to hustle, but don't be afraid to recognize that sometimes your hustle requires that piece of paper. You know, the hustle is not restricted to any one form. Look for what you're trying to do and decide whether you need a degree. If you need a degree, that's part of your hustle. And if you don't need a degree, then that's also part of your hustle.
And as you've said that, I'm looking in your book, and I can't find you saying in your book 101 Lessons I Taught My Son anything about hustling. Not one thing.
I'm a lot more strategic. I talk about things like working smart rather than working hard.
It's not the same
so
thing,
if you
is
want
it?
to use the
Not
word
the same
hustle,
thing.
I'll take it
It's
from
not the same
Jammers.
thing.
But if
not
you
the
want a
same.
copy of the book, you should
Yeah.
go to 101lessons.co.uk.
101lessons. What?
101lessons.co.uk. The book is there, is available. It's about the lessons that I tried to teach my son so that he would stand out.
And in the subsequent edition, will you add the word hustling in?
Absolutely. I have no shame.
At DS Jammers, The Art of Hustling, where can we see this event? Where can we go to it? Did you have an event coming up?
We're going to definitely have a part 2 to this event. Just email us at thespeakersclub.co.uk or email us at speakersclub at aol.co.uk or even at Flavour Showcasing as well, and that's also .com. We're going to hustling, turn it into an art form, celebrate it, embrace it, and I've been inspired to write a book on the art of hustling.
Yeah, we might come to your next event as well whilst you're at it. Now, let me just tell you about a new play which examines young black men dying in police custody. It's going to open at the Oval House next Tuesday, or this Tuesday coming. It's inspired by creator Urban Wolf's own experiences with the police. And this timely new play explores how young black men are slipping through the cracks in society. Well, Urban Wolf joins us now. I really appreciate your talking to us. Can I call you Urban or Wolf?
It's Urban.
Urban.
Yeah.
Is that your given name?
Yes, it actually is.
branding, but not Wolf. Basically, I'm also a performance and visual artist. So when working in that field, I work under a pseudonym, which is Urban Wolf. But my real name is Urban Hale.
And this is your first play, is it?
Yeah, this is my first play that I've created. So prior to this, I was just an actor, jobbing in other people's productions and doing youth theatre and things like that. But I really had a passion and a drive to create work myself.
But also, it's the conversation that we've been having all evening about, if you can't get work somewhere, you create your own, don't you?
Yeah, of course. And obviously, like, most people who write in TV or theatre are predominantly white middle-class men. So,
there's nothing wrong with that, though, is there? There's nothing wrong with that,
but obviously they can't tell your story authentically. So the way you
sure about that? I'm not sure about that. You sure about that?
Yeah,
because you remember that bloke William Shakespeare? He told our story really authentically with Othello. I mean, I can't. No, genuinely. Othello's like our story. Our story. The outsider in a white world. It's our story, mate. It's deep. You get me?
What I mean in the sense, in terms of our story, in terms of my experience, obviously that's at a different time and place. But I mean, in terms of telling my story, what I've been through, what I'm going through as a black male living in the UK.
I get that. But you didn't disagree. You didn't disagree that William Shakespeare told a decent black story.
Yeah, well, I would say that's not the complete story, because obviously black people didn't exist just in that context. They were existing in other places.
Yeah,
so there's a bigger story to tell.
Yeah, give him a 7 out of 10 then. Give him a 7 or 8 out of 10 then. Yeah. Okay, but this story, which is very much your story, and it's very poignant at the moment as well. Tell us how you tell that story in the play.
So basically, what happened was, after the riots, after Mark Duggan's death, I just saw a lot of people, a lot of politicians, a lot of people on TV talking and just saying why all these kids rioting, that they don't have any thing to do, that they're just criminals. But obviously, being a black man growing up in South London, I understood where that tension was coming from and why they reacted like that. I'm not saying it was right for them to loot and take people's stuff, but that comes from somewhere. That anger and that rage comes from somewhere, and it comes from the interactions that black men have with the police. And those interactions are things that the world or the larger society doesn't really know about. So I embarked on a journey to kind of show people that. And in my research, I came across a number of black people who had died historically in the UK in police custody, either through stop and search or any incidents in police custody that escalated. If the police officers use brutal force or anything like that, people die. And they've covered it up for a lot of years.
Sure. And the play's called Custody. And so
Custody,
we can imagine what happens there. How many people in the play?
Four.
And what's been the response so far? I know it hasn't actually opened yet, but what's been the response from those who've worked on it?
We had a research and development phase in 2015 where we just got together, started developing the ideas of the narrative, the plots and the characters, and we did a show, to just show what we had come up with and see how people reacted to it. And they really liked it.
And did you write a role for yourself in it?
Well, yeah, basically, yeah.
Yeah, well, so you're in it as well. Okay.
Yeah.
There's nothing wrong with that. I mean, you've done the hard work.
For me, it's quite important that I do that, because obviously the stories that I'm telling are real stories of things that people have experienced.
Sure.
So I want to be instrumental part of reenacting that. And
Harold Pinter wrote parts for himself. He was a jobbing actor as well, and he became one of the great playwrights, of course. So just remind me, it opens on Tuesday coming now.
On Tuesday,
on the 28th of March, yeah?
Until the 8th of April.
Until the 8th of April. That's Tuesdays to Saturdays at 7:45 p.m, yeah?
Yeah.
And has the Oval House got a website, or people can find the Oval House Theatre anyway?
Just go to Oval House website.
Yeah.
And you can just buy tickets there.
Listen, I'm going to come along this week and I'll tell people what it's like next week. But thank you very much.
Wow, that's amazing.
No, it's not amazing. It's my pleasure. I'm looking forward to it. Have you got the next play wrapped up yet? Or have you started working on the next play?
No, this is taking enough of my time. So
one at a time.
One at a time, exactly.
Urban Wolf, it's been a pleasure. Thanks very much. His play's Custody. It's on at the Oval House from Tuesday. Demarque's in here, the 16-year-old. Round of applause for him, please. Everyone. Yay! So, to hustle or to get a degree, Demarque, finally, from you?
Both.
Both?
Yeah.
Both? Yeah. Both? Did he say both?
He did.
Yes, he did.
Both?
Yes,
he
he
said
did.
both. What's happened over the last half an hour or so? Because you were a pure hustler before.
Well, it's all about the money and the degree.
Any means necessary.
And just the experience, really.
Yeah, you've been talking to Paul Lawrence. Yeah, I see. Because he earns more money than everybody else here in the studio. You want to be more like him than more like me. You came in to learn the skills from me, but now suddenly you want to be like Paul Lawrence. I get it. I won't take it personally. Listen, thank you to everybody on the show this evening. We're back next week between 8 and 10, of course. Next up is Duncan Barks, but first let's get the latest BBC Radio London headlines and our travel with Rob Oxley.
BBC Radio London.